Here's my Crusaders, and today we're going to be starting a new series in where we are going to be discussing gameplay mechanics in Destiny. Originally, I wanted this channel to do weapon reviews and content review, but honestly, weapon reviews are kind of boring and it's really not me, and I'm a more creative person. So today we're going to be discussing the build crafting in Destiny 2, and I think it's really good, but definitely needs some help. You see, we're going to go through how build crafting affects certain things and how it is very much necessary in Destiny, but it could be interacting with each other better. See, when it comes to build crafting, you have to select your class, subclass, weapons, and armor. And there's 3 classes, 4 subclasses per class. There's 3 weapons with like a butt ton of different archetypes. And those archetypes have perks. They could have 4 perks, 2 augmenting their stats, and then 2 that have actual abilities, like something like rangefinder, which makes it fire further, or something like kill clip, which gives it more damage. Then you have a masterwork with, again, augments its stats. So 3 ways of augmenting its stats. 2 perks, and one of those perks can also augment their stats, if not both of them. Pretty good for the weapons. On armor, you have 4 slots. 1 can augment your stats, 2 of them augment your weapons, and the 4th one is supposed to be for combat. And one of the biggest problems of the game is that 4th slot. And then when it comes to your subclass, you have your aspects, which you can select 2 of, and then you got your fragments, which you can select a number amount depending on which aspects you select. So even your fragments can be augmented by your aspects, and your aspects augment your skills. And on top of that, you can select your grenades, your jump, your class ability, your melee, and your ultimate now. Wow, that is a ton of combinations. And honestly, when it comes to subclasses, they're really, really good. I think the problem lies in how weapons and combat mods interact with our subclasses. Now, Bungie is just doing the 3.0s, but Bungie should have updated other things to go along with it. My first ever video on this channel was talking about how exotics could be augmented to fit into the Void 3.0 landscape, and none of them was changed until recently with the Wave Splitter Trace Rifle. That's kind of sad. Now, I think I was 100% wrong with my thoughts on that because not everything should have been upgraded, but we should have had more. It would have been nice to see certain weapons having unique interactions with certain things, such as the funny ball gun, which is Ruinous Effigy. And Ruinous Effigy could have had a unique interaction with guarding with it. It could have created volatile on hitting targets, or maybe given a void overshield. Both of those things could have been useful. Then we could have seen an interaction with Volatile with the Graviton Lance, but we did not. It's a little sad that we didn't see that, but it's whatever. I do admit the exotic armors definitely have seen some pretty good interactions with the 3.0s. And this is where we get into more complicated things. Why do we have so many perks that can augment weapon stats, and only have a few that most of them came out this season that interact with the 3.0s. But Crusader, the 3.0s just recently came out. That's true. We have exactly 4 perks that interact with the 3.0s. 2 for Stasis, 1 for Void, and 1 for Solar. But Crusader, we don't want to see so many perks to come out right out of the gate. That is true, but we should have gotten the Void perk last season. Seriously, Bungie, what the hell happened there? Really would have been nice to have Repulsive Brace on some of our Void weapons from last season, especially something like that Scout Rifle or Bow. That would have been amazing. Mostly due to the fact that they were craftable, and the fact that Void 3.0 was hot last season. Is it still good? Yeah, no, it's very good. But Repulsor Brace would have been nice last season. And then we have Incandescent, which I'm not saying these perks are bad. They're just 2 on a long line of perks. Maybe we could have augmented some of these perks to allow us to have more interactions with it. That may have been a long shot to some people, but it would be nice to see some perks giving new life with the 3.0s. It's the perfect time to do that. Speaking of perks, let's talk about spec mods. Do y'all ever use spec mods? Like, ever? Sometimes I use Dragonfly spec, but that's about it. I think it's time for spec mods to go the way of the dodo. Just get rid of them. We should instead turn these into unique combat mods. Speaking of combat mods, I got a lot to say about them. I actually have a whole list of changes that I think should be done with combat mods. You see, armor mod prices, a lot of them are way too high currently. We've changed how mods interact with certain things, especially PvP. We even changed 2 whole archetype of combat mods to not be fun for players anymore. And I think it's time we should start looking at improving and raising up all 3 aspects of combat mods, because again, it's another pillar for Destiny's customization to be based off of. So, which mods need to have their price change? Well, Recover and Intellect mods should really be dropped down because those 2 stats aren't as important and dominant as they used to be. Hell, if not that, maybe we should raise the price of the others, which I think is a dumb idea. We should just lower the other 2 to be in line with everything else. Having a 3 cost plus 10 recovery and a 3 cost plus 10 to intellect is not going to break the bank. Siphoning mods, the kinetic and the elemental one for your helmet, garbage. Why the hell are these 3 costs? They really should be 1 each. If not, make kinetic 0, but I think that really pushes things too far. The problem is it's eating up a slot in the 2nd and 3rd perk column, or mod column, whatever you want to call it. And that is a cost there. Every build has to have cost. Either it be you have to have skill to trigger effect, or it is you need to give up a lot of things to do this thing. Now, that is perfectly acceptable. But this is already costing a slot to create orbs. They don't really generate that much ultimate anymore. And then you add the fact that if you're using a Charge of Light build, you need to cost at least 1 to 3 energy on the helmet, and then need to use another Charge of Light mod, like Taking Charge. I think that was the right one. Yeah, Taking Charge. Then you have to equip whatever perk, whatever mod is going to be using that Taking Charge. So, yeah. And then you add the fact that all of the Become Charge of Light mods are really expensive and have to have a pretty hefty action cost. I understand and I accept and I like the fact that Melee Wellmaker, Grenade Wellmaker are both pretty high costs because you just need to get a kill with an ability, though Melee Wellmaker is a little bit too expensive. We'll get into that in a second. The cost of the Charge of Light mods is the fact that you have to have a ton of extra mods on. So I think having to lower the cost of them is an improvement. Then we have the ammo finders. Ammo finders should work like this, excluding the Forerunner because the Forerunner is meant to be used as a primary weapon. Special weapon should have a cost of 2. So ammo finder, reserves, and scavengers, the cost should be 2, while the heavy should be 3. That improves things for these weapons instead of having a frickin' 5 cost. God dang 'em, snipers! And it unifies everything, so it makes sense to all players. And again, you are consuming slots to use your weapons more, and where you could be using your abilities more. There's a cost effectiveness there. Now going into combat mods specifically, let's start talking about them. So we have Taking Charge, that should be lowered to 1. Quick Charge, which should be lowered to 4. Striking Lightning, which should be lowered to 3. Yes, I know, getting your melee ability back fast could be overpowered. But honestly, you do have to have Charge of Light to trigger it. And this thing is really expensive without it. Heavy-handed. Now this 1 out of 7 is almost understandable. I think it needs to be slightly changed because why is SMGs and sidearms there? Actually, strike that. Why are SMGs there? There is actually a sidearm in which you could use that for. So that's weird that that's there. And then the fact that the 7 cost mod, yes, it does generate special ammo, but has anybody actually used this thing? I think lowering it to 5 and seeing the player base's reaction to it, and if it's used too much, let's bring it to 6, but I think 7 is a bit much. Because with this alone, you can only equip like a stat increase mod. And if you don't want to do that, maybe a heavy ammo mod, if we do it with my previous changes. Or maybe a +5 stat mod and a special ammo mod. Maybe. Again, it depends on how powerful it is. Then we have Heal Thyself. I think Heal Thyself is very good at 3. So is Firepower. Firepower is great at 3. Stacks on Stacks at 3, maybe. Because again, with the cost effectiveness, the cost is that you have to have this equipped and you could be getting another effect off instead of using this. This is the problem, like in a lot of card games, for instance, with adding a draw card. This is our version of a draw card. You're getting more bang for your buck, but the cost is using the card. Normally, a lot of draw cards have extra cost to them, so a high cost for this makes sense. 3, in my opinion, might be good, though you might just leave it alone. Global reach, 1. This should be a mod that you and your teammates should be able to slap in for consistency between your 3 teammates and not have to worry about completely ruining your build. So a cost of 1 does not break the bank. Light of fire, also 1, because again, you have to be creating Warmind cells with these, and that's a pain in the butt. Warmind's light, 1. Why? Because you have to be running Warmind cells build to get this to go off. It is a combination of 2 builds. None of those mods should be expensive. Rage of the Warmind, 3. Swift Charge, 4. Now, a ton of people are like, wait, this just increases your the quick draw rate, whatever you want to call it, the pulling out of your shotguns and fusion rifles. That's kind of broken. I don't think it is. And a cost of 4 is pretty good. Like, if you're running 2 shotgun like swap mods, you couldn't run this, even at a 4 cost, on your gauntlet. So there's limit. It's not going to be breaking the game. Moving down the list, we have Sustained Charge. I think 3 is perfectly fine with this. Argent Ordnance. Okay. So here's the thing. This is a 5 cost mod that you need to have multiple equipped to get the full effect of. Because you have to have multiple equipped, and it has to be a Charge of Light build, I don't see why it has to be a 5 cost mod. If it was a 2 cost mod, I don't think it's going to break the bank, guys. Now, some of you might be like, oh no, another rocket launcher PvE meta. But it's not, I don't think that will really break the meta, because again, you have to be running a Charge of Light build, which is the easiest, is like running a helmet with kinetic or whatever your element is, whatever you're mostly leaning on as your primary like crowd control weapon. Then pick up the orb, so then you have that, but you also need to like fully lean into it to get the most effect, which is exactly what you should be. If you have to fully lean into something, you should be getting some pretty massive effects. Anyway, Supercharge, 4. 5 is good, 4 is better. I just think it will be easier for people to work with it, and it doesn't eat up, again, half of it. Though this, just like Stacks on Stacks, is a draw card issue. It might be too much if we lower it to like 3 or something. I think 4 as a cost is perfectly fine. Precision Charge, you might be thinking, wait, this is a 2 cost mod, what the hell? It also reduces your strength by 10. Why? Why, Bungie? That's a dick move. Anyway, Shield Crash, 3. Overcharge Wellmaker, 2. Why is that so expensive? You have to do a finisher. Yeah, but wait, Crusader, you're saying that finisher it has to have a cost, and finishers don't have a cost. Just lower an enemy's health and do it. Yeah, which is true. Yes. You got me there. I actually don't have a counter to that. I just think finishers are kind of annoying to go do, and like focusing them on as a build is kind of obnoxious. And if players want to focus on a finisher heavy build, let them do that. Melee Wellmaker. Now, there's other changes which we're going to get into in a bit. I think Melee Wellmaker should be at a 3 or a 2 depending on what they're doing with the melee stat. Now, 3 is just to bring it in line with the other Wellmaker. And it allows players to kind of switch between them. At least for me, I'm using Grenade Wellmaker, not because I want to use Grenade Wellmaker, but because I don't want to spend the cost on Melee Wellmaker. Moving on, we have Well of Restoration. Now, Well of Restoration should be a 2 cost. Pretty simple. That's all the cost changes I really want to do for the mods. I do want to discuss quickly on what we could do to make mods more accessible. First of which, I would like to see combat mods be random purchase and random drops more often. A 33% chance to get them at the end of any strikes, crucible, or gambit, And then you should be able to buy a random mod you do not have for 10 legendary fragments and 5k glimmer. This, if you think, oh wow, new players will be able to get mods stupidly easy. Yeah, that's the frickin' point. But it's not going to be they just get all the mods. I actually was watching a Dado video and he said, well, combat mods should be given to all players. I disagree. I think it should be a somewhat of a journey. Now, this is a small journey for something important, which I think that is, again, important. Now, this would take a long time for players to completely finish. And that's perfectly fine. We have a ton of mods. They could be farming strikes, crucible, or gambit, be getting weapons, legendary shards, glimmer, and then be getting mods from there and then spending their mods on the stuff. They could then they could be spending the resources to get more mods, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. I also think we should be having some more combat mods. They should be focused on gunplay, they should be focused on ability play, and they should be focused on perk play. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think that we should be seeing mods that actually affect stuff like flinch resistant, recoil pattern, meter effectiveness, especially that last one, and that's going to have a whole video to itself, by the way. But then I think we should be moving the spec mods to combat mods. Like, imagine if we had a spec Charge of Light mod that essentially was Rampage spec, but when you get kills while Rampage is active, you have a chance of creating a Orb of Light. Now, here's the thing. It has an escalating percentage. Caps out at, 20% of an extra Orb of Light per kill. So, let's say you rapid fire 3 kills. Well, you just got a multi-kill, so if you're running whatever siphon, you get an orb. Then, on the first one, let's say you have 10%, then something like a 15%, and then a 20%, right? So, in total, you had a 45% chance of a second orb dropping. So, as you're going boop, 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 with your guns, you are having a higher chance of getting more orbs, which makes things just more consistent. Which makes certain perks like Focus Fire more consistent and better. It's not stronger than the Font of Might, but it could be more consistent than Font of Might. Now, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Since we've been talking about mods and stuff like that, there are 2 mods that increase your stats, which I think that's good. We need to see more of them, and we need to improve our stats. So, out of the 6 stats, only 1 is really well done right now, which is strength. There's only 1 that's really well done right now, which is weird for me to say this, but it's resilience. Damn, which screen changed a lot, didn't it? So, the thing about resilience is now it is pretty chunky. It gives you a boost to your overall shields, not your health, your shields. And then it gives you a damage resistance in PvE, and in PvP it gives you a flinch resistance. Also, that works in PvE as well. The other stats don't have that. Now, mobility is second because it gives you strafe speed, i.e. walking speed. Then it gives you jump height, your base jump height, not the boosted jump heights that you can get, the glide, the boost, and the multi-jump. And it also, for hunters, makes them dodge faster, but for everyone else, it just does the other things. So we need to be seeing an improvement with that. I think giving it mid-air effectiveness and also increasing its strafe speed a little bit more is the play. So I think at max, you could give it either 15 or 20 mid-air effectiveness. I think it should be much easier to get mid-air effectiveness. I would like to see an escalating mid-air effectiveness. And you might be saying, but Crusader, resilience only gives you a 10% flinch reduction. Yeah, but there's a million other ways you can get flinch reduction. And 20 mid-air effectiveness is not the same as 20 flinch reduction. If you got shot with a gun that give you 10 degrees of flinch, you only get 8 degrees of flinch with the 20% mid-air effectiveness, with the 20% flinch reduction. But with 20 mid-air effectiveness, it might do little to nothing, depending on your mid-air effectiveness of your weapons. So, yeah, that's something. And mid-air effectiveness, I think, is a really well-designed concept. It just has not the weight behind it that flinch reduction does. because it has a lot more mods that you can lean into it with. Now, we have recovery. Now, if the mobility increases your mid-air effectiveness, resilience increases your flinch, should recovery introduce something new? Well, it would be cool to see it affect a stat. I just don't think there's any good weapon stat for it to influence. Maybe recoil verticality. And I don't mean like if it's going right or left. I mean like up and down. Though I feel like that's broken. Then I thought about reload and range. No, that's too important. Draw time. Maybe? That's a tough one. Though, by itself, I think it should be giving you a faster revive speed in PvE. And it should be giving you a stronger overshield when you revive a teammate in both PvE and PvP. Now, we still have 3 more stats to talk about. Strength, discipline, intellect. All 3 of these lower the respective stat of a skill. So, 100 strength means you're going to begin that melee back faster. 100 discipline, 100 you get that grenade back faster. 100 intellect, you get that ultimate back faster. And intellect used to be really powerful in comparison. But the thing is, times have changed, and intellect has gotten its lunch taken away from it. And the reason why is because you can now get your ultimate back by just killing things. Not even multi-kills, just killing things. Now there's also orbs, there's also taking damage, and just generally dealing damage. And then the passive, which this thing only increases the passive generation. So what intellect should do is increase how much each of these increase by. Like, let's say each kill gave you 1% of your ultimate. Well, with 100 intellect, it gives you maybe 1.8% of your ultimate, which is a faster cooldown. It also should give you a resilience to sniper damage. And again, this should be only in PvE. All these resilient mods only affects you in PvE anyway, and I think this should continue. The strength should give you a melee resistance, and grenade should give you an area of effect resistance. How strong should these be? When you max them out, it should be equivalent of 1 resilience mod. And I don't mean a +5 or +10. I mean the respective ones, which I think is like a +15 resilience. I mean, +15 damage reduction. So that's pretty chunky. But what if, should we be weakening the resilience mods? No. Let that shit stack. This is one of my biggest problems. Things don't really stack too well. Stacking 2 mods, I understand that. Reduce the cost. Maybe not as much as I do, because it reduces like something from 20. When you equip 2, it's now 25, and it's like, why? It should be 30. A half percentage of what it was. But that's here nor there. The other videos, we'll talk about that more. This is my thoughts on build crafting. I think things should be interacting with each other more. Cost of things are too high, and certain effects are not doing enough. Now, with that being said, this is coming to the end. I would be very happy if you liked, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Peace!